There are three key positional groups that need to step up for the Cowboys moving forward. We'll tell you which ones they are next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we are taking a look at three key positional groups that need to step up for the Cowboys, not only in week 2, but for the rest of the season. And Landon, I want to start with the linebacker position because this is a spot that looked really good in training camp, really good in the preseason, not so much in week 1. How did the Cowboys get better linebacker play?
They get Kenneth Murray off the field. I mean, I hate to be a little bit cruel, but it feels like a lot of the problems we had in week 1 was that Kenneth Murray was kind of exactly who we thought he was, right? And this has been an issue since, we signed him, that you and I kind of just didn't see the vision here. We, fast forward into training camp, we see a couple of different guys like you referenced have really good camps and show out really well. And it felt like, man, maybe we've got like a kind of nice deep group. We get into week 1 and yes, of course, look, I mean, it was the Eagles. I don't know how many times we have to talk about it. It was the Super Bowl champs. And I think that's obviously accounts to some of it, but there's also, just simply making the tackles that are in front of you and kind of not looking lost on some of the inside run games, despite being I can't even remember, a 7 or 8 year vet at this point. Right. So I just think that, he missed all this time during training camp. With, I think it was the birth of a child, if I'm not mistaken, and then just didn't get a ton of time in the preseason. And when he didn't necessarily look great. We didn't see anything that made us feel like that he was any better than the other linebackers that we were seeing out there at different points. Clark, especially Leofau. I mean, I guess that's the guy that we should be mentioning here. And so it's just a little bit frustrating to kind of see him out there get a ton of snaps in week 1. And lo and behold, he didn't play all that well.
So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because you're right. He missed a lot of time this offseason, and it's a new scheme for him. Didn't play a lot in the training camp, didn't play at all in the preseason. So I think we should give him at least one more game before jumping to conclusions. Unfortunately, this is just who he's been. And I struggle with his fit in the defense because Matt Eberflus wants to have a fundamentally sound defense where the gaps are all controlled, guys are where they're supposed to be. And that's just never really been Kenneth Murray in the NFL or in college. He is a high variance player who can make some splash plays, but you have to live with the inconsistencies and him jumping the wrong gaps and being in the wrong spots. And I don't know if that's going to fit in here.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is the most frustrating again to me about it is that it's not like Leofau has been like, unplayable or so undisciplined that it's still the same issue with him either. Like it feels like when you've seen him, he's played sound football. And last year he played really well in sometimes very demanding, technical Mike Zimmer defense. So I just think that it's one of these things where you're hoping that the kind of defensive coaches catch up to clue on to what we've all seen is that it's clear that some of these down roster linebackers, it's not even just like they need to take all of Murray's snaps. That's not even what we're asking, but maybe a rotation. I mean, I think Leofau played 6 snaps to Murray's like 50 plus. So I just 62. Yeah. So I just think that you need to see better play from the linebackers, whoever it is. But I would also just like to see Leofau more on the field because I think you're going to get better performance from the linebackers overall.
And one of the things that we're seeing with Eberflus that we did not see at all with Dan Quinn and Mike Zimmer is you're just seeing more 3 linebacker sets on the field. Like they are not afraid to put 3 linebackers on the field, and that's how they're going to stop the run. We saw a lot of Damone Clark in this game. You mentioned Maris Leofau, Jack Sanborn played a lot of snaps. They're rotating some of these guys in, but I don't think Murray needs to be the guy that's getting 62 snaps or 100% of the snaps. But then again, he's been wearing the green dot, which is the guy that's calling the defense. Maybe that's the reason why he's on the field so much, but it can't be for his play.
Well, then, I mean, if that's the case, then why go get a guy like Jack Sanborn? Like, I mean,
Well,
I
and
think
Sanborn was wearing it during the preseason as well, so at least he has some experience calling the defense.
so. Yeah, it's not like it's that you can't peel that sticker off the back of his helmet. Like, go peel that sticker off the back of Murray's helmet and go give it to Leopold. Let him call these plays.
Yeah, it's just a spot. If they're going to be a better defense this year, if they're going to get, as the season progresses, they're going to need the linebackers to play really well. And you're hoping that DeMarvin and Overshown can come back at some point in the year, stabilize that group. But just based on what we saw in week one, it's not going to be good enough. And it wasn't awful, but they are going to need this unit to play a lot better. And they should. They've got better protection up front. The Kenny Clark addition was a big one. There's really no excuse for this linebacker group to play as poorly as they did in week one.
Well, and again, too, I think the other part of it is that I think we would be a lot more panicked if we didn't feel like you had two younger guys that were underneath these two veterans that did have a good game on just limited snaps. So, look, I mean, it's early in the season. It's a long season, and linebacker is the running back of the defense in the sense that these guys get into a lot of collisions and they take a lot of hits and they can really wear down. So it's not the worst thing to rotate these guys. Maybe get take some of these bumps and bruises early so you can let the young guys develop and have them playing by the end of the season. Obviously, you have Overshown coming at some point, hopefully in the next few weeks, month or so, and then that it'll change the landscape of the position. But as it stands right now, clearly you've got a ton of snaps that you need to eat up. You probably have 4 guys that you feel really comfortable playing on a heavy rotation. I think they just probably need to tinker with the snap rotation a little bit more there.
Why don't you think we've seen more of Maris Leofow? Because again, last year there were some up and downs, but he just provides a level of physicality that none of the other linebackers have. And I really think the defense could use that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do feel like part of it is, of course, previous coaching staff, and he doesn't have the guys vouching for him that were in the room last season. That's clearly part of it. But I mean, at the same time, like, that's also the same problem that Damone Clark had the previous year with Zimmer. So, and look how Damone Clark has kind of shined a little bit when this last preseason and training camp and really in this first game. I think, hopefully they're taking a lesson from that and saying, hey, let's not just poo-poo Leofow because his coaching staff isn't here anymore. When he's out there, he's making plays. If anything, it feels like what you get out of Murray, but without a lot of the negative aspects of it too. He seems more disciplined than Murray is in certain ways.
He also just has an energy about him that feels infectious. And again, when you have a defense that I think is talented, but not as talented as it was a year ago, you need kind of a couple of these lightning rod players that can, bring the energy to a defense. And I think he can do that.
Well, again, I mean, not to belabor the point, but we also already know what Kenneth Murray is. As we keep saying over and over again, it's not like we're going to get a bunch of surprises out of Kenneth Murray by playing him more. He's a 27-year-old linebacker who's on his third team. All right, let's see what you get out of Leofow if you feed him more snaps. When you fed him more snaps last year, he got better. Let's see if that continues to happen. So I think you need to develop that. I think that's the plan. I just think that it's a long season, so a lot of these guys are going to play a lot of snaps. Let's just adjust the balance a little bit more.
All right, let's talk about the tight end position, because honestly, I did not think that group played particularly well in week one. We'll talk about what they can do in week 2 and beyond next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it lets me bet however I want to bet. Like, I get really into the futures bets. Like, I like to pick who I think is going to win the divisions, who's going to be the MVP. I also like to do some of these parlays on Game Time where, you pick up a couple teams that you think are going to win. Maybe you just pick the money lines, but that's the way I like to bet. It adds just a little bit more excitement and juice to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting fanduel.com to get started. That is fanduel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keeps you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. And if you need parts fast, SupplyHouse has next day delivery. Talk about an absolute game changer. I know there's several times where I'm working on projects, but I can't get a part for a week, and that just throws off my motivation to get it done. But with SupplyHouse, you can have it on your doorstep the next day, so you can actually get the stuff done that you need to around the house. So join the free Trade Master program today and score some serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Lena, let's talk about the tight end position, because honestly, I was a little underwhelmed by what I saw from the group, at least as receivers. I think they did some work in the ground game, but
Yes.
I think as a whole, this unit needs to be better if this team wants to kind of take that next step as an offense.
Definitely. And I think that's, it goes hand in hand, like as they are becoming more valuable as run blockers. And I do think that they had actually a very good game as a run blocking unit, all things considered. You need them to be able to convert their targets when they're receivers, right? And it clearly was across the board. All three of the guys had targets that went to them that they couldn't come down with. Obviously, Ferguson with the most glaring of those. But I also think that there was some spacing issues with some of these targets, and not exactly on target some of these situations. But regardless, we need production from that position, which it doesn't feel like we've had a consistent level of production in the receiving game from in quite a while. I mean, even when Ferguson came back and for early in the season, it just didn't feel like it ever kind of got back up to what we had expected. And I understand that you're going to have, obviously more targets going to your wide receiver too, as you've got a guy that you want to throw to a little bit more there.
Not in week one. I mean, I think that's going to change, but yeah, going forward, yes.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, I think that will change going forward, but Dak's never going to go completely away from those seam routes. He's going to want to throw those, and if you're going to make the tight end position valuable, the value comes in not giving away tendencies by deploying tight ends on the field. And you're only not giving away tendencies if you have success in the receiving game. Otherwise, no one's going to care that you're a receiver if you can't convert enough to make it worth them committing defensive assets to stopping you.
So between the three tight ends, they had 8 targets for 23 yards. I mean, you're averaging under 3 yards per target, which is abysmal, right? And that doesn't even count the Ferguson target on the unnecessary roughness one where he kind of bobbled the ball in the end zone and then got hit. Like, this was a very poor performance by these guys as receivers. And unfortunately, because you have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, or fortunately, these guys should get a lot of targets and a lot of opportunities over the middle of the field, and they have to convert on them.
Yes.
I think if Ferguson catches that ball in the middle of the field, you probably win the game, or you've got a great chance to win it. It's just, that's the difference in some of these little moments.
Yeah, and I think that the issue with not being able to convert that is that suddenly it becomes a very easy defensive formula to kind of solve this problem, right? Because if you're not going to burn them for committing all those defensive assets and all that time to spending whether it's bodies or just tilting coverage towards the guys on the outside to CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, then they're just going to continue to do that, and they're going to make you force them to look, to do something about the tight end. And if you can't, it becomes a pretty strong weakness. And the Cowboys have got to make sure that that's not the case.
Now, we should mention them as blockers because we're going to talk about, spoiler, the offensive tackles here in segment 3. But I think, even looking ahead to week 2 when you're playing the Giants with Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, who had 2 sacks last week against Washington, and Kayvon Thibodeaux, like these guys are going to have to be able to chip and get out and routes. They're also going to have to be able to block in the run game. I think across the board, what we're saying is they just need this group to play better. We know that they're talented. The Cowboys just paid Jake Ferguson a ton of money. You need more consistent and reliable production from your tight ends.
Yeah, and we believe in these guys. I mean, I think with Brevin Spanford had a really good game in limited snaps. I think even Schoonmaker, outside of the drop that all these guys had, I think it was good in the blocking game. And Ferguson has leveled up his game there too. And like you mentioned, specifically in games like the Giants, where you have these edge players who can really destroy and take over passing attacks by just limiting all your ability to drop back and get it. Throw the ball from a clean pocket. You have to attack them on the edges, especially these speedy guys like Burns and Carter, right? Like you have to be able to attack them on the edges in order to kind of neutralize the pass rush a little bit and give your passing attack more opportunities to play action off of them and take shots down the field to push the safeties back a little bit more.
Now, the only thing I will say about Brevin Spanford, he basically missed most of training camp with a high ankle injury, did not do anything in the preseason. Schoonmaker, I believe, was a concussion late in the preseason. So he's missed some time. Ferguson didn't play at all in the preseason. So maybe now that they've knocked some of that rust off, they'll be better. Again, they have to be, because this is going to be a unit that gets a heavy workload. And one of the things that Brian Schottenheimer has kind of followed through with is they're going to use a lot more 2 and 3 tight end sets. We're just going to see these guys on the field more often than we did with Mike McCarthy.
And just to give a little bit of sunshine here at the end, if we were to go into this game, and of the 2 aspects that you really see with tight ends, which one would have been more worrying if you didn't see it early on? Because to me, I have more faith that they'll solve the receiving part because I've seen that before. The fact that we saw them really do well in the run blocking aspect, that was encouraging to me, because that was the part that I wasn't so certain, in principle, that it was going to be able to work out. And it looks like it really can.
Yeah, I think that's more of a timing issue. Dak was just a hair late on some of the passes, and Ferguson just bobbled one. Partly, it happens, right? Like I'm not all that worried. It's just one of these positions that has to be better. All right, let's talk about the offensive tackles, because as a whole, the offensive line played fairly well against Philadelphia, but they've got honestly an even tougher task in week 2. We will get to them next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all of the details, and Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every single model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery, and you can make your everyday drive feel like anything but, with smooth handling and just absolutely fantastic controls. So like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. The NFL season is finally here, and for your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Roland, gives you a shot of NFL espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns. Find a Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about the offensive tackles, because I thought for the most part they held up okay. Tyler Guyton Honestly, I did not have much expectations because of the knee injury. Gave up 5 pressures, but was fine. Terrence Steele was okay. I thought he was better as a run blocker, but it's only going to get harder from here on out. You've got Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeaux. This is a group that's got to play better.
Yeah, I mean, this is the week that they're even going to be tested, obviously, a lot more than they were even last week. Yeah, and I think, as you're saying those things about Guyton, it's specifically in context of all that we know about what happened to him in the training camp, missing all the time, being able to even play in this game is just such a blessing. So we're thrilled about that. But guess what? Now it's time to perform. Now it's time to play football.
You get 10 days off, right? Like
that's right. You've
be,
had 10 days off. You got your snaps in. It should be ready, right? Like, and you're going to need to come out firing on all cylinders. And there's a reason that Marcus and I, decided to focus on the tight end and offensive tackle group, is because we think that this is going to be a key aspect of this upcoming game against the Giants specifically, but also just moving forward, obviously, with the tackle. So I think for Guyton, now that he's had some time to kind of hopefully recover a little bit more, kind of tighten up a little bit his technique, kind of get into the season that he did, because he didn't get, obviously the preseason snaps that you probably would have seen him take. Like, I think that they were showing us that a lot of these young offensive linemen, they were actually giving opportunities in the preseason. I think if he was healthy, they probably would have given him preseason snaps. So now that he's gotten a chance to kind of get that under him, he's gonna need to specifically tighten things up in the pass protection, because that's where they're going to attack the most. You're going to see Burns, you're going to see Carter, you're going to see Thibodeaux, and then beyond that, you're going to see a murderer's row of pass rushers coming up this whole season. The schedule is not going to be relenting for it's unrelenting for him.
I watched Chicago on Monday night, and Montez Sweat was out there making plays, and they, then in week 4 you've got Green Bay, and we know who's coming to town that game. Like, as you were talking, I was thinking, if you told me how the offensive tackles were going to play throughout the season, I could probably tell you how the entire team is going to play, because if the tackles struggle, I think the offense can still be good, because Dak's really good at manipulating the pocket, right? But the ceiling just isn't there, right? Because you're limited on some of the stuff that you can do. But if these tackles play extremely well, and the front, I think, is going to be the strength of this team, now you could do a lot more 5 and 6 man protections, and now you can really start to push the ball down the field and be more aggressive. I really think these 2 tackles could decide whether the Cowboys ultimately make the postseason or fail to make it.
I think the key thing here that is helpful versus some of the other tackle situations we've had, especially in most recent years, right, is that I do feel a lot better about both tackles' ability to block in the run game. And I think that gives you a floor, and it also just gives you an opportunity to get physical with some of these pass rushers who are going to want to just try to tee off on you and try to like get around you in the pass game. If you get the opportunity to beat up on them a little bit, wear them down, it just helps you out. And also just has them thinking, is play action happening? Is this quarterback about to pop out the back door and deliver something on a bootleg? So I think that using misdirection, the way the Cowboys have, using motion and using, changing the gaps, all these things, they're using all the tools in their belt. But surprisingly, too, we're seeing not as much, but I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see some more tight ends kind of pairing up with the tackles in pass protection. It's not always preferred to do it that way, because some tackles don't necessarily like that. They like the freedom of being able to kick out. But maybe you start to just see a guy chipping a Carter on his way out to get into the flat to try to catch a pass, just to kind of help the tackles a little bit more in the pass protection game. And again, just being more physical with these guys, these smaller guys on the edge.
Really quick, I want to touch on the helping tackles out, because you're right. There are tackles that would prefer not to have a tight end over there because it just messes up the spacing a little bit, and they prefer their kick slide. There are other ones that can really benefit from it. Like, I watched Armand Membu this week against the Jets. He was awesome once he got a little bit of help from the tight end who released out in the flat, that he was able to sit down and anchor really well. There's other tackles that like to have the running back behind them as kind of a last line of defense. They don't want anybody in their way, but just in case they get beat, there's somebody there. I'm going to be interested to see how Brian Schottenheimer and Clayton Adams handle these tackles if and when they start to struggle.
Yeah, and again, I think it'll have to be a combination of things, right? And the good news is, like you said, I do think that Dak handles pressure from the outside better than in his face, right? And I think that that's
100%.
most quarterbacks, but Dak specifically is very good about stepping up into the pocket, giving himself a little bit of extra time, and if he doesn't have anything available to him in the pass game, he's good. He's got enough legs that he can get 3 or 4 yards, positive play, get down without taking a
Well,
huge hit, right?
and I'll even say I think he's got a pretty quick release and just a really good feel. There was a play, I think it was on the big CD Lamb play. I think it was maybe the 3rd and 1 where there was pressure from the outside. He just made a slight step up, got rid of the football, and yet it was about that close. If you're watching with us on YouTube, of him getting strip sacked, but he kind of has a feel and where when he needs to let go of the ball. But you're right. It's the pressure in his face where now he's having to go backwards. He's just not a very good quarterback if he has to go back or way outside the pocket.
Last thing, I think the key thing too to keep in mind here, the thing that could really get them in trouble is they have to tighten up the transition in the passing of stunts and loopers in the interior that are attacking the interior,
Yes.
right? Because I think that's where it's been a problem a little bit. We've been attributing a lot of it to the guards, but I think it's also on the tackles to make sure that they're not getting beat inside by guys spiking down inside and having loopers on the outside. I think that's a quick way for Dak to get pressure in his face and cause problems and throw errant passes. Got to make sure to avoid that best they can.
So just to recap, linebacker play, we would like to see more of Maris Leofau here in week 2. We'll see if Kenneth Murray is better in his second start under Matt Eberflus. Need the tight ends to be better in the passing game. We thought they were pretty good as blockers in week 1. If they could step up in the passing game, I just don't see how they lose to the Giants. We'll do our preview later in the week. And then we want to see the tackles just to become a little bit more consistent. So keep a lookout for those 3 positions as the Cowboys move forward in the season. That is it for today's show. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. We have a crossover show for you on Thursday with Patricia Traina from Locked On Giants, and then we'll be back on Friday to get you ready for week 2.